Specifically in Europe, we have so many fantastic companies. Legora, Synthesia, Parloa, ElevenLabs.
And where do you think the biggest opportunities are to invest in right now?
Well, that's the key question, right?
Hi, I'm Tom Guinness and welcome to the Raising Europe podcast. Here we go behind the scenes with the people building the future of European tech. Today we welcome Karn Dasgupta to the show. Karn is a London-based investor with WestCap and leads their efforts across Europe. WestCap is a New York-based growth equity firm with $6 billion assets under management and has achieved incredible success to date, backing the likes of Klarna, StubHub, and Preply. If you want to learn what it takes to invest in billion-dollar tech companies, you don't want to miss this.
Karn, it's great to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm good. Great to see you, Tom. And it's really fantastic to see what you're doing building Raising Europe.
Thank you so much. So let's kick off with a little bit about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, happy to. So I lead WestCap's investment efforts across Europe. And, my investment journey goes back a while. So when I was 13, my dad handed me a book on investing.
What book was it?
It was The Little Book That Beats the Market by Joel Greenblatt.
Oh, great book.
It was a really good book. Well, I wouldn't know better at 13, but it piqued my interest.
Yeah.
When I was 10, I wanted to be a footballer. When I was 11, I wanted to be an F1 driver. All credible career options, I'm sure you'd agree.
Oh, yeah.
But investing stuck for some reason. So, I started doing more research and looking into it, and I really like the active value creation model. So I joined a private equity buyout, really enjoyed working with management teams to drive operations.
Yeah.
But the last deal we did was with a founder. And the energy, the dynamism around a founder-backed business was just very different.
Right.
And that's what led me to WestCap. So when I met Laurence Tosi, WestCap's founder and managing partner, I could tell he was building something different. And he's just such a great guy. He blended his pretty unique experiences. So he was an operator, he was a former executive of Airbnb and Blackstone. He had founded successful businesses. He was a very tenured investor. And the amalgamation of all of that was WestCap.
Right.
He built it to empower founders, to give them that operating leverage that a scaling company needs. And, every firm says that, but I remember when I joined our first town hall, and I was just shocked by the scale of the operating team. It was 40 plus full-time functional experts from, brand, cybersecurity, insurance, treasury, all sorts.
Yeah.
And from places like Airbnb, Salesforce, Uber.
Yeah.
So the strategy just really resonated with me. And I was thrilled to join as their first local hire in London.
That's amazing. And so congratulations for the Preply deal. I know that you guys led that round. How was that?
Yeah, really thrilled to be back in the team. So I met Kirill, the co-founder and CEO, about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And the team they built, the product, the sort of mission they have, it's really fantastic. We spent a lot of time over the past year in London, Barcelona, San Francisco, New York, really getting to grips with the business, trying to understand, what a partnership could look like. So really thrilled to partner with them.
So kind of back to you and WestCap. How has your role at WestCap changed over time since joining?
It's a good question. Probably less time spent assembling furniture. So, when I joined, we didn't even have a physical office.
Really?
It was really day zero.
Wow.
So we spent a lot of time, the core tenets of the role haven't changed. Like sourcing deals, driving diligence, working with the portfolio. But when we joined, there was a lot of, listening, learning, understanding the ecosystem. Where do we want to invest? How can WestCap uniquely add value? And all of that's still quite key, but the focus has shifted where now we have a lot more conviction in where we want to invest.
Right.
Where can we add value? Who are the winners? And then proactively building those relationships and working with the portfolio more.
So what are you hoping to achieve with WestCap?
Yeah, so I think it's quite simple at the end of the day. We want to invest in leading disruptive companies and be the most value additive investor on their cap tables.
And so when it comes to investment opportunities, what types of companies do you invest in?
Yeah, so Preply was quite emblematic of a classic deal for us. So strictly, we're a minority investor. We normally lead in price rounds.
Yeah.
We like to have a partnership with the companies. So generally, we seek a board seat,
Right.
investing across Europe and the US, asset-light technology companies. And in terms of scale, you're looking at sort of tens of millions of dollars in revenue, if not larger than that.
And where do you think the biggest opportunities are to invest in right now?
Well, that's the key question, right? I think, a few areas we've been discussing internally. One is around vertical applications of AI.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of funding.
Yeah.
But we're seeing some really scaled deployments and some pretty large companies starting to emerge. The key question there is, can you build a moat against the foundational models?
Yeah.
Another area which I think is really interesting but very nascent is the trust and governance layer for AI, where that covers everything from protecting the integrity of models to cybersecurity and guardrails around rogue agents to verification and detection of deepfakes.
Right.
And then I guess the last one I've personally been spending some thematic time doing research is around B2B marketplaces.
Right.
Particularly in Europe, where you can unlock cross-border transactions. There's a lot of risk around disintermediation from agents and AI. But I think the marketplaces that are unlocking transactions that wouldn't occur otherwise, because you have a supply that's really tricky to aggregate, or you have a data problem, or maybe there's just a lack of trust.
Yeah.
I think those would be the ones that win.
Diving a little bit deeper into the B2B marketplace piece, are you more interested in the infrastructure behind the marketplaces or kind of the application layer above?
I'd say both. I think if you're looking at the actual marketplaces, you need to look at the underlying market mechanics, where, for example, if the value to volume ratio is too low, then the transportation costs will eat up the transaction and you won't be able to move beyond local clusters. So there's all these sort of factors that come into play. On the infrastructure powering them, I guess it's a question of TAM. So payments, obviously a large issue, a lot of things that can be built there.
Yeah.
KYC, procurement, huge issues. But if it's sort of a point solution, which a lot of these infrastructure companies can be, then that can be trickier.
How has the last 18 to 24 months reshaped your investment philosophy?
Yeah, excellent question. I'd say, since LLMs have become proliferated so much, we've seen revenue growth like never before.
Right.
But the quality of that revenue has deteriorated. You're seeing margin compression, the stickiness is weaker, and the barriers to creating products has never been lower. So, for us and many firms, the real question is, how do you build enduring moats in the age of AI? And there's different ways you can do that. Do you have proprietary data? Do you have differentiated partnerships or distribution? Are you deeply integrated in the stack? Yeah. And is the founder and the broader company flexible and adaptable to rapid change?
And so what's one belief you had earlier on in your career about investing that you now know is completely wrong?
It's a good question. I think it really shaped the arc of my career was the idea you had to be a control majority investor to add value. And that was why I went into private equity. But I think earlier in a company's journey, especially if it's a hyperscaling company, growing rapidly, it can be a lot more transformative. So for example, if you can help build the infrastructure for them to go to 100 to 1,000 employees, or nail a geographic expansion, or launch a product better, that can be far more meaningful. But it's hard to add value as a minority investor. The way we do at WestCap is we have a focused portfolio. So today we have more operators than portfolio companies.
Right.
We have a 2-to-1 ratio of operators to investors.
Okay.
And most of our capital is actually on companies we've already invested in. which means we can really provide targeted support across the portfolio.
And that's as a minority investor, not as a controlling investor.
Exactly.
That's a very different take to when you started your career in PE.
Completely.
Where do you see AI taking us in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, it's changing every week. Who knows what's going to happen? But I mean, I think the big thing is moving from generative AI to agentic, where it's not just creating content, but it's actually acting. So if you look at the commerce layer, we won't just use it to help discover products, but it will actually execute purchases for us.
Yeah.
At the enterprise, it won't just be a tool, but it will actually be a teammate. It will own workflows end to end. And I think at the SMB layer, it's going to be really empowering for individuals and small businesses. It will let them offer products that were just not economically feasible before. And I know there's a lot of gloom about AI being really disruptive and taking jobs and so forth, and there will be a lot of societal change.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's also going to empower people. It's going to allow us to focus on what we really want to do and take away some of the manual tasks.
And so what do you think the next AI is going to be? What's going to be the new thing beyond AI?
I wish I knew, and it's definitely going to be wrong.
No crystal ball for me either, unfortunately.
Exactly. But there's a couple of things I'm pretty fascinated with. My wife's a biologist, and I think, she studied biology and biological engineering. We're moving from DNA being a code you decipher to one we're actually starting to write, literally in the case of CRISPR. And I think that's just the start. And the implications on medicine, disease, longevity, it's going to be fascinating, but also there's going to be a lot of ethical questions that we'll have to address. And then one other on my mind is quantum computing. I think we've seen some really interesting developments recently.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great European companies
absolutely
in quantum right now.
Completely leading the way. So just the concept of encryption in particular, RSA encryption protects pretty much the entire digital world based on the difficulty in factoring large prime numbers. And all of that falls away if you have a stable, powerful quantum computer. So it's going to be really fascinating to see how that plays out.
Yeah, there'll be a very big change.
Yeah.
So how do you think today's market environment is shaping the next generation of European founders and investors?
Speed. I think product velocity like never before. It's also taken away a lot of constraints. We're seeing more founders do more with less.
Yeah.
We're seeing the convergence of product, engineering, design. But also I think specifically in Europe, what's really great to see is we have so many fantastic companies scaling so rapidly, like Legora, Synthesia, Parloa, ElevenLabs, which they're not just inspirations for the next founders, but they also create the Flywheels, the Playbooks, the know-how. And I'm really excited to see that trickle through the ecosystem.
So I'd love to know, when you're talking about all of these great businesses, how do you source the great deals as an investor? So for example, Preply was one of the biggest deals we've seen, at the start of 2026. How do you source deals like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say the majority of deals from us is relationships with other investors, early stage investors. So Acuria Ventures, which I believe was a seed investor in Preply, they introduced us. So I met with Kiro about 3 years ago. So that's definitely the main strand. And then the rest are probably between conferences, thematic research, but investor relationships is really crucial.
When it comes to winning these deals, what is the unfair advantage that WestCap has that other growth equity investors just doesn't?
Yeah, so that really goes to the heart of our approach, which we call operating equity. And the model is, taking a group of world-class operators and really leveraging them as force multipliers for the founders we back. And it's always free of charge and at the founder's request. We're not pushing our ops or anything on them. And if you think of the individuals we're backing, they could be world leaders in their field, but they might not have, the top tier expertise in cybersecurity or in treasury or in performance marketing and so forth. And our team are, largely in the peak of their careers, and they are, ready to do real work. And we have a phrase that is capital that works, because as opposed to the sort of advisory or consultant model that you often see, at WestCap, we will actually have real projects and KPIs and hold themselves accountable. So if the founder needs them in the trenches with them, they will roll up their sleeves, or it could be high-level advice. But that's really our unique setup, and it also gives us insight, which other firms might not have.
So when it comes to sourcing the best deals, aware that you mentioned, your network, talking to other investors, going to great conferences, and meeting people in person, to source the best deals. But in the age of AI, how data-driven is the team at WestCap?
For us, I'd say we're pretty data-driven, and I think that comes from two strands. One is a lot of the firm has buyout routes, and so as a firm, we sort of try to bring that rigor to the earlier stages. And then the other piece is on the operating team. Whilst their primary focus is on the portfolio, they do work hand in hand in diligence with us. So every time we look at a company, the investment team partners with the operating team to really get a sense of how they're doing. And maybe just to give you an example, in go-to-market, we'll work with our go-to-market team to assess the pipeline, the forecasting, the attribution, what does the sales cycle look like, the time to value. And that doesn't just give us a better insight into how the business is doing today from a diligence perspective, but if we do the investment, it also gives us a better insight on how can we turbocharge their efforts? How can we build a better outbound strategy? How can we, give them that boost?
So when it comes to finding businesses that you can give that boost to, how do you identify a must-back business? Like, what are the non-negotiables?
So I think for every great business, there's a bunch of things you want to see. You want to see a compelling founder. You want to see product excellence, passionate customers, good unit economics, an attractive market, competition, market size, all that sort of stuff. I guess for a generational business, it needs something more. And that could look like something like really powerful network effects, where your competitive advantage grows as you scale. Or a really powerful flywheel that gives you increasing returns to scale. And just to give you an example, maybe it's like a phenomenal organic acquisition motion combined with very high value on incremental data or increasing liquidity in the marketplace. But at the end of the day, there's no real magic formula, and every business is quite unique.
And so speaking about unique businesses, that means also unique management teams. What's something you look for in management teams?
Yeah, and exactly, management are very unique. I'm not a fan of these founder archetypes because, everyone is so idiosyncratic and different. But there are qualities that you want to see. I think, firstly, just voracious or ruthless determination. Work ethic is not enough. It needs to be almost obsession. Obsession, like, to build a successful scale up, and especially at the stage where we invest, where we're looking for very large outcomes, it's not enough to just work hard. You need to be obsessed, thinking about it constantly. It just has to be all consuming.
Right,
really.
so you need to live, breathe, eat, sleep.
Exactly. And it can come in different ways. I think, some investors say, it has to be super mission driven, where they only back founders who have faced this product and face this issue and wake up, dreaming about it. That's one way. It could be just an insatiable drive to win. There's many ways that can be, but they need to effectively be obsessed.
And so, when you think about some of the most obsessed founders who are, great storytellers, how do you distinguish between storytelling skill versus kind of real substance?
I think that normally comes out in the depth. Right. Like, do they engage? Do they just have some sort of flow, which you can't interrupt and interject? And I think the best founders, even if they don't agree with you, they like to be challenged. They like to show you why you're wrong or you should think about something in a different way. And I think it's really that deeper engagement and diligence and how they respond to it.
So speaking about, backing founders, in hindsight, what's one company that you regret not investing in, and why did you pass on that?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is everything.
Yeah.
But it's funny enough, so actually when we were first connected with Preply, they were actually doing their Series C. Now, we were focused on quite a few different things. We were a lean team. We were also a bit late into the process. So for various reasons, that didn't quite align. But obviously in hindsight, had we invested there, we're obviously very excited where we are now. But it would have been ecstatic had we invested back then.
Right, just a little bit too early for you back then, but as you got up the curve, the next round was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, not even too early. I think we just met the founder too late in the process, and we had a few other things we were running at. We had to get our head around a few things. So I think the stars just didn't align.
What do you think founders usually misunderstand about working with WestCap?
I mean, one I always get is, do you charge? And
Charge for what?
Charge for the operational services that we do.
Right.
And I get that. A lot of private equity firms do charge their portfolio companies. And I've heard from some founders that they didn't even know. They will just turn up with a bill, which is
really?
pretty crazy after they've done the work.
Oh, really? So it's too late. They've already pushed the button. They've already spent the money without knowing.
And that happens more in control situations, but it's sometimes things seem too good to be true. So that's one. Everything we do is part and parcel of the investment, and that is really why we're set up the way we are. And then the second one is sort of related in that we are pushing to put our operational changes on, or we want businesses to turn around, and it's very much far from the truth. It's really, we're a minority investor. We are supporting our companies wherever the founder wants us. So it's very much pull from the founders.
Right. So it's founder-driven rather than WestCap-driven.
Exactly.
What do you think the role of a growth equity investor will look like in 2030?
It's something we've been talking about lately, especially as we're rolling out some of the foundational models at the firm and what tasks can it automate and so forth. And it's super exciting.
Yeah.
I think there's two strands. One is capital more broadly is getting commoditized.
Yeah.
And I think the base level analysis is going to get commoditized. So, running through a customer cube and getting, metrics on a SaaS business and all that sort of stuff. So then, in my mind, there's two things you really need to do. One is add value for your portfolio companies. So that could be actually jumping into some of the operations. It could be strategic introductions. It could be market intelligence and all that sort of thing. And then the second is sort of providing superior insight, more on the way to determine your investments. And, really getting a clearer picture of the world and how it's going to unfold, the market and all that sort of thing. I think that's where growth equity is going to move, because everything else is going to get commoditized.
What advice would you give to the next batch of founders and investors?
Yeah, I think one piece that always served me well was just valuing relationships.
Yeah.
I think that will be a pretty timeless thing where they take time and effort and they will compound. And I remember when I joined WestCap, one of the first piece of advice I got, where I was pretty new to the whole growth equity landscape, was just always think about how can you help someone. Just be helpful in general, don't be too transactional, and that will serve you well in the long term. And then I'd say the other piece, which is a bit more timely, is just AI and really being at the forefront, seeing how can it transform your workflows. Obviously crucial if you're a founder, but also if you're an investor, and seeing how you can integrate it and transform what you're doing.
Right, so be more personable on one side and then more AI-driven on the other.
Yeah, exactly. But, and I don't think those are necessarily at odds. I think actually it can up-level you because you can automate a lot of the repetitive tasks and focus more on the relationships.
I think that's completely right. AI is freeing people up to do more and more in person than ever before.
Absolutely.
So outside of investing, what do you do for fun?
So it's pretty cliche, but I love paddle.
Paddle.
I'm addicted. That is my obsession, if you call it. I actually got introduced by a VC paddle tournament.
Oh, really?
So that was really good fun. I'm not very good though, so for any listeners, don't get your hopes up.
So why the obsession with paddle?
The probably more honest answer is I'm not that much of an athlete, and paddle's just a lot easier than tennis and squash.
Yeah.
But it's everything. It's from the sound. It's quite social as well.
Yeah.
You're always playing doubles. Everyone I played with has been super nice, and you do get a lot better each time.
Yeah.
And I think that learning curve is really satisfying.
If you weren't an investor, what would you be?
For a long time, I said probably something like the World Bank, IMF, an NGO focused on economic development. But I think I would just really struggle with the bureaucracy. It's one of those things where you want to come in at the top and make change. But I think realistically, I'd probably struggle in that environment. So if I started again, maybe product at a scale up.
Yeah.
The more and more I speak to people, I think that would be a pretty fascinating journey.
What are your top 3 films of all time?
Oh, good question. Interstellar. Well, my favorite is Fight Club. Interstellar. You have a
Fight Club's great.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And Dark Knight. I actually just saw Dark Knight with my brother-in-law at the IMAX. They're showing again. Phenomenal film.
What books would you recommend to others in addition to the one that you picked up as a young investor?
Yeah, good point. The Wolf of the Plains by Connie Gordon, favorite book. I think more generally, reading a historical fiction before traveling to the country just brings it alive in a different way. I'd say second one, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. It's just a masterclass on curiosity, on one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. Dr. Feynman, the Nobel Prize winning physicist. And then the last one is Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. Timeless tome on bubble thinking, written almost 200 years ago, but given is AI a bubble is brought up every day, I think it's pretty relevant.
Who do other people say you look like in the realm of celebrities?
So I think after a long deal sprint or intense portfolio activity, probably one of the zombies from I Am Legend. Like
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not a great sight. But if my wife's being more flattering, Shahid Kapoor, who's a Bollywood actor. But yeah, that's on a more flattering approach. I'll leave it to you to judge.
Perfect. What is your walk-on song?
Has to be Till I Collapse. It's been my favorite song for who knows how long. I'm always hyped. Yeah, Till I Collapse by Eminem.
Thank you so much, Karn, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Wishing you and WestCap all the best for the rest of the year and beyond.
Amazing. Thanks, Tom. This has been super fun.
I have a quick favor to ask you. Raising Europe is a community-supported channel. If you find that our content has been valuable to you or has helped you in any way, please hit the subscribe button. It's one quick, free, easy way for you to support the channel and help us make our production better each and every week. Thank you so much for joining us on our journey so far. Without you, none of this would be possible.